Hello, I'm Matt from SCV, and in this video we're going to look at CD ripping on the range of Novafidelity streamers. I've got a couple of the models here, but we're going to use the X45 Pro, which is their flagship, for this demonstration. But the operating system on all of the current models is exactly the same, so if you've got a different model, don't worry, the process will be the same. So the first thing we want to talk about before we look at the actual machine is metadata. The metadata is very important when you're creating a music database because it holds all the information about album, artist, the tracks and the CD cover artwork, even things like genre and mood, lots of information about the music which helps us use our music database effectively and easily. So we want that information to be there when we rip our CD. Now, CDs don't hold that information themselves. They have CD text, but that's just a header at the start of the CD, which gives CD players a little bit of information, but it's not enough for a music database to work well. So there are various services that provide this metadata, and machines like the Novafidelity have to connect to get hold of it. So what Novafidelity do is they give you two options. They give you an option where you don't have an internet connection, and this is provided by FreeDB. It's a text-based metadata database, and that's installed on the machine itself. So what that allows is for customers who don't have an internet connection or can't connect their machine to the internet for whatever reason, gives them an option for getting some of this metadata onto their CDs when they rip them. Unfortunately, it doesn't carry any CD cover artwork, so that's a limitation. You'd have to load that manually, and it's not as wide a database as Gracenote can provide, and it's manually installed, so you have to update it manually. So it's really there as a backup, just in case you can't get internet access. So the preferred method of getting metadata is going to be via the Gracenote service. So Gracenote is the second service that Novafidelity provide, and this requires an internet connection, so the machine must be on your network, and the machine must also be activated. So Gracenote make a charge for their service. There's a license fee, and that's €5 per year per license per machine. There's 2 licenses on each machine, which I'll show you in a minute. What Novafidelity do is they provide you with 2 years free of charge licensing on new machines, but if you've got an older machine or you bought one second hand, you might have to check this and make sure it's active, and if not, you'll have to reactivate it. So we'll have a look at that now. So let's browse to our setup menu and click OK. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we'll see there's license. There's 4 options here. We're only really concerned with the top 2, and these are highlighted in white to show they're active on this machine. If this was a new machine, they'd be greyed out like these bottom 2. So let's go into the top one. And we can see this is the license for CD, which is the artist, album, the track information. Here is the date that it's valid until. This is a unique device key for this machine, and this is the web address for where you would go to purchase a new license or extend it. So because this one's active, you can see the blue button down here says extend. That would say activate if this was a new machine. If we click on that, we'll see instructions on how to extend it. But essentially, you visit the website, enter your device key, and then the license is automatically activated between the machine and the Gracenote server. So that one's fine. Gracenote cover, which covers the artwork, is also on here. This is active. We could extend that, but we don't need to. So we've got those activated. So when you're checking this, I should point out, make sure your machine is connected to the internet, because it needs to be able to contact the Gracenote server to activate those licenses. So once we've done that, we are then ready to look at the settings for CD ripping. So starting from your main menu, if you go into the setup menu and scroll to the second item down, which is CD ripping. So we've got various options here. So from the top down, bitrate relates to lossy compressed file format. So this is to do with the MP3 or OGG files, if that's the file format you've chosen to rip your CDs to. So basically, the higher the number, the higher quality the audio you're going to get. Unless you really want a smaller file, leave that on 320. No reason to go any lower. The quality second relates to the speed and the size of the file you'll get. So if you set quality to excellent, it will take longer to do the rip and convert the rip to the file format you've chosen, but it'll give you a larger file. Whereas very fast will do this quicker and give you a smaller file as a result, but it won't take so much time over the rip. So again, leave that on excellent. This only applies to compressed formats again, so that's MP3, OGG, and FLAC and ALAC. In this case, FLAC and ALAC not affected by bitrate, but you can change the size of the file by altering how fast the compression is carried out. So leave that on excellent again, unless you really want to save space. The audio rip format is where you choose the audio file format you're going to rip your CD to. So you've got several options here, some of them compressed, some of them not compressed. So you've got CAF, WAV, AIFF, MP3, OGG, FLAC and ALAC. So let's talk about these for a moment. So working from the top down, CAF is a core audio format, which is an Apple format. So this is a newer format. It's not compressed. It can contain a compressed file, but it doesn't have to be compressed. And it holds a lot of information for metadata, so you can get a lot of the information on there for your music database. The downside to CAF is that it's not that widely supported, so it's better over WAV and AIFF because it can contain much more metadata. So AIFF and WAV are pro formats. They're not consumer formats in their history, so they don't have fields to contain lots of metadata. So they're not that great if you're going to transport things around out of this database. And it's similar with CAF, although it can contain more metadata and it's not compressed, so you get a direct copy of your CD. It might not be that transferable to other systems if they don't support it. Not much does at this time. So a good option if you're only going to use it in the machine and you want to have uncompressed audio copies of your CDs. The next two, MP3 and OGG, they're lossy compressed files. You're going to lose information, you'll get a lower quality file. If you're not looking to save space and you don't want to transfer them to portable devices which read these file formats, there's no real reason to choose that for the sake of your system. Here I would stick to a lossless file format, either compressed or not. FLAC and ALAC are compressed, but they are lossless, so you won't lose any of the original information, but the file is compressed to make it smaller for storage. And these also benefit from having more metadata tags, so you can store a lot more information about the audio file. So for this reason, FLAC is probably one of the most popular audio formats for people who want to maintain metadata, move their library around, make sure that it's compatible with other devices. That's a really good option because it's lossless compression and stores lots of data. So that's a relatively safe option to use. So let's leave that on FLAC. I won't go into the free DB options here because that only applies to using that offline if you don't have an internet connection. And we would highly recommend you do try to use the machine with internet connected. So the last option, auto rip, simply on or off. If it's turned on, then it essentially automates the ripping process. So all of the settings we've just looked at are preset. You insert a CD, it will go away and interrogate Gracenote, collect the metadata, decide what that is, and just rip the CD. You won't get the option to interrupt that process, but it's very good if you've got a large collection of CDs that you want to work through. You can put it in, go away and busy yourself with something else, come back when it's done, and just put the next one in. So that's a very good option for getting through a big collection, and you can correct any things which aren't quite right afterwards. I'm going to leave it off because I want to show you the process that CD ripping goes through, and if I put it on, it obviously won't get the chance to show you. So let's leave that off and come back. So we've looked at all our settings, we're connected to the internet, we've got Gracenote turned on, so now we're ready to insert our CD. Okay, so now we're going to look at ripping a CD. So let's come back to our main menu, find ourselves a CD, pop this one in the front. So the machine's now going to load the CD, and what it will do is it will look at what it's got on there, it will query that with Gracenote, see if it can find a match for that CD, and then it will report back with a list of track names and the album that it believes that CD is. So there's a good thing to mention here is that, here we go, it popped up. So if we had auto rip turned on, what the machine would do, it would query Gracenote and then try to start the ripping process. So if it couldn't contact Gracenote because the license wasn't activated or you didn't have an internet connection, then that process would fail and it would say metadata cannot be found and it will eject the CD. Now that can cause some confusion because it's not immediately obvious that it's because you've got auto rip on. So turn auto rip off if that happens and see if it's any better. If it still can't find metadata, it's probably because the internet connection isn't there or that Gracenote isn't activated. So sometimes it can look like there's a fault with the machine or possibly damage to the disk. There's nothing wrong with either. It's just making sure you've got the internet connection and Gracenote is activated before you attempt any ripping, whether that's automatic or not. So here we're fine, it's connected, it's found what it thinks this CD is, looks good, so there's all the tracks. So if we now select the menu button, we've got a couple of options. So we can rip all of those, we can select various tracks just by ticking down the list, and we've also got the option to see the next set of metadata. So what this is, Gracenote will have several things that it thinks this CD is in order of likelihood. So we're seeing the most likely, which is correct, but if that wasn't for some reason, we can skip to the next set of data to see if that's the correct one. This is correct, so we'll just select ripping all. And because this isn't automated, we've now got the option to select the file type again. We'll stick with FLAC. So here's the final list of data that the machine is going to put into the music database connected with this CD. So this is where the metadata comes into play. So we've got all the information there about it, making it easy for us to browse on our database. We can change any of this at this point if we want to by scrolling through them and selecting OK, the center push on the dial. This might be a time where you want to change the CD artwork. This is the most likely thing to be wrong. It's correct this time. A lot of the time it's not a problem at all, but if you need to change it, you can highlight that with a blue box, select that, and you've got various options here for finding an alternative. So that could be from a USB stick connected to the machine or on your network if you go from storage, and then various online sources you can interrogate to see if they have a better alternative for the artwork you've got. Sometimes you might just want to do this to improve the quality of it. Some are better images than others. So in this case, we've got the correct one, so we don't need to change that. Again, if we press next here, it'll give us another set of Gracenote data, but this metadata looks good, so we'll stick with that. And if we scroll down to OK, as soon as we click there, the machine will then go into the ripping mode. So off it goes. Here we are. So we've got the track name here. We've got the length of this track. This is the CD time, so not the real time, but the play time of the CD processed so far, and the total playing time for the CD, the number of tracks it's going to rip, the speed it's ripping at, the time elapsed so far, and the estimated total time to complete the rip. So that's all the information, so we can see what's going on while it's ripping. If there are any errors, then they will come up as sector errors here. It will say sector error. If you get a lot of those, it probably means that the CD is scratched or damaged in some way. The Novafidelity have developed an excellent algorithm for ripping the CDs to hard drive. It's very good at overcoming some of those errors, but if there's too many, it will ultimately fail and eject the CD. This is a nice clean CD, so it's powering through that with no errors at all, so that's great. And we'll just wait for that to finish. It's going to take about 12 minutes, and when that's done we should be able to find that in our music database. Okay, so it's finished ripping that CD and has ejected it, so we can remove that and probably back over here. Let's have a look in our music database. So if we select music database, and there we see the last album added is this Sting, The Best of 25 Years. You can see here that this is highlighted in blue, so this is a question that comes up relatively often. So if we go into this, you can see that some of these tracks are white, some are blue. So what this means is when the CD is first ripped, there's a conversion process happens. So it first of all rips it as the CD WAV, a non-compressed rip, and then it converts that into the preferred audio format. So you can listen to the rip straight away, but it won't be in the format that you've requested until it's all gone white. So we can still listen to this, but that's just to tell you that there's still a conversion process going on for the rest of these tracks. So it doesn't do that during the rip, otherwise it would take a lot longer and you wouldn't be able to get on with the next one and listen to what you want to listen to. So this is all a background task which makes it more efficient for you. So we can see that in our music database, and yeah, we've got all of our information there. If we go to file operations, we can then look at editing any of the album information if it's not correct, but we'll look at that in a different video.